The Grand Terrace Ballroom of the Miramar Hotel shimmered beneath a canopy of crystal chandeliers, each one casting fractured rainbows across the polished marble floor. I stood quietly near the entrance, tucked behind a towering floral arrangement, watching the evening unfold like an elaborate stage play. The bride, my sister Camille, glided through the crowd in her custom couture gown, basking in the attention of San Francisco's elite. Laughter, champagne, and whispered admiration followed her every step. Trailing close behind her were our parents, Martin and Lillian Prescott, wearing the kind of beaming pride they'd never once shown for me. "Just sign here, Miss Reyes," the wedding planner murmured, offering a sleek tablet with the final payment details for the venue. I signed without hesitation, suppressing a smirk at the alias I'd used when I acquired the Miramar chain 4 years ago. If only they knew that Valeria Reyes, the enigmatic hotel entrepreneur, was really Valerie Prescott, the daughter they'd buried in whispers a decade ago. I returned the tablet and adjusted the intricate mask covering the upper half of my face. The masquerade theme had been Camille's dream. Ironically, it allowed me to walk among them completely unnoticed. "The ceremony was lovely," I said to the planner, my voice touched with the subtle Mediterranean accent I'd perfected over the years. She smiled warmly. "Thank you, Miss Reyes. It means a lot that you came in person. The Prescotts are a legacy family here in the Bay Area." Legacy. That word had haunted me my entire life. Our family's legacy wasn't just money. It was control, expectations, obedience. When I was 24, fresh out of Stanford's business program, I made the unforgivable mistake of saying no. No to marrying Brandon Steele, heir to a competing real estate empire. No to sacrificing my future for a business merger disguised as a wedding. The fallout was instant. My father's fury, my mother's icy silence. The ultimatum: marry Brandon or be disowned. I chose exile. The next day, I drained the last $75,000 from an overlooked investment account and disappeared. I spent weeks in a rundown apartment in Oakland, devouring everything I could on tech startups, urban development, and digital branding. They erased me from their lives. So I rebuilt mine from scratch, better, smarter, and untouchable. And tonight, without even knowing it, they were celebrating in my hotel. I changed my appearance, refined a new accent, and built Valeria Reyes from the ground up. What I didn't know back then was how far my parents were willing to go to erase me. Instead of admitting their eldest daughter had walked away from their control, they told everyone I drowned during a yacht accident in the Bay. They even staged a funeral, close casket, tear-streaked speeches, and a lavish reception held at one of the very hotels I'd later buy. I discovered the truth 6 months later when I tried to send Camille a message. The email bounced, but not before I saw her profile picture, dressed in black, standing beside our parents in front of my memorial photo. That was the day Valerie Prescott truly died, and Valeria Reyes came to life. "Ms. Reyes?" The planner's voice brought me back to the present. "Would you like to be seated for dinner?" I nodded, letting her guide me to a table tucked discreetly along the side of the ballroom, close enough to watch every smile and toast, far enough to keep my mask in place. There was something wickedly poetic about it all. I paid for this wedding. I owned the Miramar Hotel where it was being held. I even held the title to the Pacific Heights mansion my parents still proudly called theirs. Over the last decade, I had quietly acquired every asset the Prescotts valued, every business relationship they leaned on, and yet, I remained invisible. Across the room, my father's voice rang out. "May I have your attention, everyone?" The crowd hushed as Martin Prescott lifted his champagne flute, still regal, still smug in that perfectly tailored tux. His silver hair shimmered beneath the lights, as if even time bowed to his legacy. "Today we celebrate the union of our only daughter Camille to a wonderful young man." Only daughter? The word stung more than I'd expected, even now. But Martin wasn't finished. "And we also remember someone dear to us, Camille's sister Valerie, who left us too soon. She would have loved this day." Next to him, my mother, ever the dutiful matriarch, dabbed at her dry eyes with a lace-edged handkerchief. The performance was flawless. They mourned the daughter they buried in fiction. If only they knew she was sitting 30 feet away, worth more than the Prescott name had ever commanded. A waiter approached, offering more champagne. "Thank you," I murmured, accepting the glass to steady my hands. I hadn't come here for revenge, or so I'd told myself. I'd built my empire from brilliance and grit, revitalizing legacy hotels, launching eco-conscious tech startups, and redefining luxury. That my family now unknowingly depended on me was merely poetic justice. "So tragic. What happened to the older one?" whispered the woman next to me, leaning in for gossip. "They say she was troubled, refused an arranged engagement, ran off. Some even say she mimed a falling motion." My grip on the glass tightened. Of course. A suicide narrative. Easier to digest than the truth. I had simply chosen to live on my own terms. At the head table, Camille rose for her speech, her voice, polished and poised, carried across the ballroom. "The only thing missing today is my sister Valerie." I raised my glass slightly, in silent toast. She hadn't missed me enough to stop them from writing my obituary. But I wasn't gone. I was thriving. And soon, they'd all know just how alive I truly was. If this moment left you breathless, just wait. What happens next will shake the Prescott legacy to its core. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of Valerie's silent reckoning. Her face may be hidden, but her power is about to be revealed. I must say, we were quite surprised and honored when we heard you'd be attending in person, James Porter said, straightening his cuffs with performative ease. I smiled behind my mask. "I make it a point to personally oversee special events at my flagship properties, Mr. Porter, especially for families of such long-standing reputation." He puffed up a little at the flattery. "Well, the Prescotts and Porters have been fixtures of Bay Area society for generations. Though, I'll admit, these past few years haven't been the smoothest." I nodded politely, though I knew exactly how rough things had been for both families. Quietly and with surgical precision, my companies had taken over their most valuable shipping routes. I'd modernized their aging logistics pipelines under shell corporations, drained their profits, and offered just enough cooperation to keep them from realizing the extent of the shift. "The industry's barely recognizable," he sighed. "All these startups, apps, drones, AI-driven tracking systems. How's an old firm supposed to compete?" "Change is never easy," I offered, sipping my champagne. "But it is inevitable." He shook his head. "You know, my son was once supposed to marry Martin Prescott's older daughter. Now that would have been a legacy worth preserving." Didn't respond. I didn't have to. He went on. "Such a shame about that girl. Bit wild from what I heard. Refused to follow tradition. It all ended tragically, didn't it?" My fingers tightened around the flute. Then a commotion up front. My mother, elegant, poised, and just a bit too drunk, stood suddenly, swaying as she raised her glass. "I simply must say," she slurred gently, "how wonderful it is to see everyone here tonight, especially those who supported us after we lost our Alina." My back stiffened, the room froze. She dabbed dramatically at her eyes. Oh, those days were hard, the shame, the whispers, but we did what was right. We protected the Prescott name. At the head table, Camille looked mortified while my father's expression turned to stone. "Margaret," he said firmly, "that's enough." But champagne had cracked the surface. "I just have to say," she called out to me, "Miss Reyes, what an inspiration you are. A self-made woman. Not at all like our poor Alina, who thought she could survive without her family." She laughed high and brittle before adding, "She didn't even make it a month." Something in me snapped. "And now she's what, Mother?" I asked. The room fell silent. My accent slipped. Her gaze locked on mine. For a split second, just one, I saw it. Recognition. But then it passed, blurred by alcohol and disbelief. My father rushed forward, voice smooth as always. "Our apologies. The day has stirred old griefs. Please, everyone, enjoy your dinner." He escorted her out with tight dignity, likely to the penthouse suite they didn't know I owned. I sank into my chair, fingers trembling. That moment, I'd nearly given myself away. The elderly woman beside me leaned in gently. "Don't mind them, dear. Old names like the Prescotts. They're not made for the future." But you? You're exactly what this world needs. I heard your company is expanding into global logistics? Among other ventures, I murmured, voice carefully back in character. The rest of the evening passed in fragments, Camille laughing too brightly, my father recovering his charm, guests trying to forget the scene. They were all relics now, and I was the future. As I stood to leave, the coordinator rushed to my side. Ms. Reyes, will you be staying the night? The presidential suite is ready. I smiled. Yes, I think I'll stay. No, I said quietly, watching my father lift his glass to lead yet another round of hollow toasts. I think I've had enough family theatrics for one evening. The wedding coordinator gave a small nervous laugh, clearly unsure how to react to the dry, unreadable tone of her most powerful guest. I handed her a thick envelope. My wedding gift to Camille, though she'd never know it came from the sister declared dead a decade ago. Make sure the bride and groom have everything they need, I instructed calmly, and have someone send water and maybe a prayer to Mrs. Prescott's suite. She'll need it. As I stepped out of the glittering Miramar Ballroom, my father's voice echoed behind me one last time. To family, the most precious thing we have. I didn't look back. Valerie Prescott was gone. They made sure of that. But Valeria Reyes? She was just getting started. In my car, I dialed a number from memory. Maya, I said as my assistant picked up. Execute phase 2. It was time the Prescotts discovered who they'd tried to bury. The morning after the wedding, I sat in my penthouse office overlooking the bay. Massive cargo vessels crept across the water below, relics of another time. The Prescott fleet among them, their names still painted in proud serif lettering. But beneath the surface, financially, structurally, they were sinking. Maya entered with her tablet. The numbers are in from last night. She was the only person alive who knew both versions of me. The Prescott Porter wedding ran them $310,000, charged to credit. I didn't blink. And their financial status? Dire, Maya replied, swiping to another screen. Prescott Global's Q2 losses exceed $13 million. All their properties, including their residence, are mortgaged through holding companies you own. They're 3 months behind on payments to Reyes Logistics. Which means, I said, folding my hands, they're 3 months behind on payments to me. Maya nodded. And the Porter merger? Equally fragile. James Porter's firm is bleeding. A merger now would just tie 2 bricks together and call it a raft. I let out a dry laugh. He told me at the wedding that his son was supposed to marry me. Said it would have been a merger worth celebrating. Should I initiate rate increases at Reyes Logistics? Maya asked, already poised to move. Yes, I said. Let's see how long loyalty lasts when modern solutions are cheaper and faster. Maya hesitated. Your father's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Fine. I rose from my chair, spine straight. Prepare the documents. It's time for Valeria Reyes to make her first public move at Prescott Global. Are you sure? She asked quietly. They buried their daughter to protect their name, I said, voice like ice. Now they'll see exactly what that name cost them. The next morning I dressed with intent. A deep crimson Ferrera suit, Louboutin stilettos that struck the marble like thunder, and my grandmother's gold compass necklace. The only Prescott who had ever truly loved me. The headquarters hadn't changed in a decade. Same marble floors, same brass signage from 1871, same smug oil painting of my great-grandfather in the lobby. But today, the air was charged. Whispers followed me. Ms. Reyes, the receptionist blurted, the board meeting is private. Not anymore, I said, handing her a thick folder. My credentials. As majority shareholder of Reyes Logistics and legal lien holder of all mortgaged Prescott properties, I have every right to be here. Her hands trembled as she read. 14th floor, she whispered. In the elevator, Maya's voice came through my earpiece. They're trying to push through an internal bailout. He still thinks he can save the company. When I reached the boardroom, I paused, listening to the voices beyond the door. She owns half the port leases we use, someone hissed. We're out of time. Then my father's voice. Phoenix Logistics is trying to dismantle us. This woman, this Reyes, she's bleeding us dry. I pushed the doors open. 12 men turned. Silence. At the head of the table, my father stared at me. Monsieur Reyes, he said at last, his voice hollow. This is a private meeting. Not anymore, I said, striding into the boardroom, the sharp click of my heels slicing through the silence. Please, don't let me interrupt your conversation about my company's terms. Your company? My father nearly choked on the words. Reyes Logistics is just a tech startup gimmick, leeching off legacy clients with flashy interfaces and robots. Prescott Global has endured for 6 generations and has exactly 12 days left, I cut in coolly, placing a folder on the table. Inside were 10 years of planning in ink and signatures. Deeds, transfer agreements, financial statements, contracts. Evidence that every building they used, every shipment they booked, every deal they thought they negotiated in confidence had been orchestrated through me. Their homes, their offices, their entire name, slowly bought out from under them. This is a lie, my father whispered, rifling through the folder, his hands trembling. These buildings? Our house? The hotel chain? Mine, I confirmed, as are controlling interests in your biggest remaining clients. You're not just trying to win, I said. You already lost. He slammed the folder shut. Who are you, some outsider tech heiress trying to erase a legacy? You don't understand what tradition means. Something cracked in me, just a little. I took off my sunglasses and met his gaze head on. Tradition? Like arranging your daughter's life behind closed doors? Like writing her obituary when she didn't obey? The blood drained from his face. No, he whispered. No, it's not possible. Lillian Prescott, one of the older board members, breathed, wide-eyed. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. Valeria Reyes, actually. I took the name after you buried me. It turns out, being dead is great for business. The boardroom exploded. Voices overlapped in disbelief and panic. My father sank into his chair, silent. Somewhere in the building an alarm began to blare, no doubt triggered by a panic button he'd pressed under the table. Enough, I snapped. You have 24 hours to accept the merger terms. If not, I'll call in all debts and liquidate your remaining assets. Prescott Global will cease to exist, except as a cautionary tale. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and father? You might want to check on Margaret. She's still recovering from her little moment at Camille's wedding. Security guards rushed past me, responding to the silent alarm. I smiled at them. They were employees of Reyes Security Holdings. They didn't even know they worked for me. Yet, in the elevator, Maya's voice came through my earpiece. Well, that was theatrical. They like spectacle, I replied. I learned from the best. Your mother's waiting in the lobby. I froze. What? She arrived 5 minutes ago. Look steady. When the elevator doors slid open, there she was, Margaret Prescott, perfectly composed, standing beneath the portrait of our founder. For a moment, I saw myself at 18, standing in that same lobby while she lectured me about duty and family image. Miss Reyes, she said, or should I say, Elena will do, I replied, but only in private. Publicly, you made sure I was dead. Your choice. Her expression tightened. We did what was necessary. For the family name. I laughed. Take a good look around, Mother. That name isn't worth the brass it's engraved on. You're enjoying this, she accused, tearing down everything we built? No. I stepped closer. I'm rebuilding what you destroyed. The company will survive. Grow, even. But it won't belong to the Prescotts. Her lips quavered. We thought you were dead? Homeless? Powerless? I offered. No, you erased me because you were afraid I'd prove you wrong. A single tear cut through her foundation. Elena, please, she whispered. Come home. We can fix this. I'm not your obedient daughter anymore. I walked past her, heels clicking toward the exit. You have 24 hours. I'll let you keep the house. Consider it my gift to Camille. Outside, the San Francisco sun greeted me like an old friend. I turned back once, watching Margaret Prescott fade into the shadowed lobby, small and brittle beneath her collapsing empire. Maya was already in the car. Let's go, I said. There was still so much more to do. Phase 2 complete, Maya reported. The board's in disarray, legal's on standby, and rumors are already rippling through the financial district. I glanced at my phone, lit up with missed calls, my father, former board members, family friends I hadn't spoken to in a decade, all now suddenly desperate to speak to the woman they thought was dead. Let them talk, let them panic. The next 24 hours would decide the fate of both their legacy and mine. For now, I said, eyes on the skyline, we wait. Then we show them exactly what the dead daughter can do. The hours crawled. I spent the night in my penthouse office overlooking the bay, watching the golden sunrise bleed over cargo ships, Prescott vessels, still crawling toward irrelevance. The irony wasn't lost on me. The messages kept coming. From my father, we need to talk. From former board members, let's discuss terms in private. From family friends, Elena, darling, we never believed the rumors. From Camille, is it really you? I answered none of them. I spent the morning triple-checking everything instead. Press releases, merger contracts, final financial disclosures. The story had already begun to leak. Reyes, once declared dead, returns as tech mogul to take over family empire. The headlines were practically writing themselves. The Wall Street Journal's on line 1, Maya said, entering with coffee. They want an exclusive. Not yet. I accepted the cup. Let them speculate. The real story drops after the vote. And if they reject the merger? I smiled, remembering Margaret Prescott's trembling voice in the lobby. They won't. Right on cue, my phone chimed. The board's secretary. Vote passed. Unanimous approval of Reyes Logistics merger terms. Even my father hadn't opposed it. Set the press conference, I told Maya. 2 hours. Main lobby of Prescott Global. Elena Martinez will make a formal announcement. And Elena Prescott? I touched the gold compass pendant resting against my collarbone. She's done hiding. By the time I arrived, the building was buzzing. Reporters lined the hall, cameras pointed at the podium, employees filled the balconies above. And there, on stage, stood my father, surrounded by a fractured board, looking like a man who had aged 20 years in one day. I made them wait 10 minutes before stepping out. I wore Prescott blue, the same shade my father wore in every portrait, but now modern, structured, and mine. I wore my grandmother's pendant, catching the lights like a subtle weapon. I stepped to the podium. Thank you all for being here, I began. My name is Valeria Reyes, but some of you might remember me as Elena Prescott. The room erupted. Flashbulbs. Shouts. A gasp I knew came from my mother, somewhere in the back. I raised a hand. 10 years ago, the Prescott family announced my tragic death in a sailing accident. In truth, I simply rejected an arranged marriage and left to build my own future. My parents chose to bury an empty casket instead of admit their daughter had chosen independence. My father stepped forward, eyes dark with rage. Security, my security, held him back. In the decades since, I continued, I built Reyes Logistics from the ground up, redefining global shipping while others clung to tradition. I turned to the board. Today, I announced the full merger of Prescott Global with Reyes Logistics. The name may remain, but the leadership will not. Effective immediately, all current board members will retire. Generously, reporters yelled, questions flew. I caught sight of Camille at the back, still sun-kissed from her honeymoon, staring in open disbelief. I'll now take questions, I said. Miss Prescott, did your family know you were alive? No, I said flatly. They were quite committed to my death. Elena, we thought, my father began. You thought I'd fail, I replied. That's the problem, father. You never saw who I really was. He deflated before the cameras. We did what we thought was right. No, I said softly. You did what was easy. From the crowd, my mother's voice cut through the noise. Elena! Please, my mother began. I didn't look at her. Instead, I turned back to the press, my voice calm and controlled. The merged company will retain the Prescott name, out of respect for its history, I announced. But make no mistake, this is a full transformation. We're moving forward, whether the old guard likes it or not. More questions flew, but my attention drifted. Camille had pushed through the crowd. Gone was the polished bride from 2 days ago. She looked younger now, unsure, almost like the sister I remembered. "You were there," she said softly, reaching the stage. "At my wedding." I nodded once. "You watched us all. Pretend to mourn you." "I did." She leaned in, voice low. "Sometimes I'd see you. In the background. Old photos, events, board meetings. I thought I was imagining things. You weren't. Why didn't you tell me? When it happened? When you left?" "Would you have kept my secret?" I asked quietly. I saw the answer in her eyes. "No," she admitted, shame flashing across her face. "I was 12. Old enough to know what they did was wrong, young enough to be afraid you'd end up like me." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I missed you. Not the ghost they turned you into. You." For the first time, something cracked inside me. I missed you too. But I couldn't be who they wanted. I had to be who I am. A reporter's voice broke the moment. "Ms. Reyes, what happens to the Prescott family now?" "They'll retain their personal assets," I said, professionalism back in place. "Those that aren't already legally mine. They'll be compensated fairly for their shares." "I'm not here for revenge," I added. "I'm here to save a company that lost its vision." "And your family?" another reporter asked. I looked at my father, small behind the podium that used to make him powerful, at my mother, crying in the shadows, at Camille, standing between two versions of the past. "Some things," I said slowly, "can't be fixed with money." The press conference wound down. Sound bites were captured, headlines written. I remained on stage as the room thinned, watching my parents speak with their lawyers while Camille hovered between us. Maya appeared beside me. "The paperwork's ready." "In a minute," I said. I walked to them. Up close, they looked fragile. Human, not the giants of my childhood. "The lawyers will explain everything," I said smoothly. "You'll be fine. The house stays with you, the beach properties too." "I'm not here to leave you with nothing." "Just powerless," my father muttered. "No," I replied coldly. "I'm giving you a choice. Accept retirement and dignity, or fight and lose everything." My mother reached for my hand. I let her. Her rings dug into my palm. "We thought we were protecting you," she whispered. "The business world is cruel." "I know," I said, pulling away, "and I survived it." "Because you forced me to." Camille stepped forward. "Valerie, Elena, what about us?" "You're my sister," I said. "When you're ready to know me for who I am, not who they told you I was, my door is open." I turned to go, then paused. "Oh, and Mother, next time you're drunk at a party in one of my hotels, maybe don't brag about erasing your daughter. It's bad for both our brands." An hour later, the signatures were done. Prescott Global was mine. New board, new systems, new future. That night, I stood in my office, watching Prescott ships float beneath the moonlight. Soon they'd be painted with the Reyes Logistics logo. Their legacy would survive, but not in the hands that built it. Maya entered with champagne. "To the merger." "To the truth," I said, raising my glass. "Sometimes something has to die, so something greater can live." She nodded. "Camille's been calling." I touched my grandmother's compass resting over my heart. She always said the right path isn't the easy one. "She'd be proud," Maya whispered. I smiled, eyes on the harbor. My phone buzzed. "Camille." This time I answered. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice quiet. "Really talk? Just us?" "Come over," I said. "It's time you met your sister, for real." After I hung up, I told Maya to order dinner for 2. It would be a long night. Of truths, of healing, of beginning again. I wasn't Valerie Prescott anymore. That girl had been buried in the lies they told. But Valeria Reyes was real. Strong, free, unstoppable. And finally, at peace. I raised my glass to the dark waters below. "To Valerie Prescott," I whispered. "May she rest in peace." Then I turned away from the window, toward the future. If you have come this far with me, thank you, truly. This story wasn't just about reclaiming a company or confronting a legacy. It was about finding the courage to become who I was meant to be, even when the world tried to bury me. And now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away quietly or fought your way back on your own terms? Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Give me the advice you wish you had when you felt overlooked, underestimated, or silenced. Your voice matters, here and in your own life. And if you're walking through a chapter like I once did, unseen, unheard, labeled as the difficult one, remember this: they don't get to define you, not forever. You are allowed to rewrite your story, you're allowed to fail, disappear, rebuild, and rise stronger. The world will call it revenge. You'll know it's freedom. So subscribe if this spoke to something deep in you. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that walking away isn't weakness, it's sometimes the bravest thing we can do. I'm Valeria Reyes, and I'm not done yet. Neither are you.